Have you ever seen an entrepreneur who started a business because they wanted to be financially, they wanted to change the dynamic of their family. They wanted more money, only to now have that same business be their prison. Like you reach certain goals at a certain point, but now you can't even move forward because you're struggling to go to that, struggling to work on your business. There's one crucial reason why you feel this way. It's because you failed to pivot. You failed to pivot. And now, because you failed to pivot, you're not seeing the success and the growth that you needed to actually grow. And so today we're going to talk about pivoting and why you're struggling and how you can make one move and it'll lead you to the success that you've been looking for the last few weeks, few months, or the few years. And so let's talk about it. So, what is pivoting? What is pivoting? Now, I know when we first think about pivoting, some people think, oh man, I got to pivot. That means I failed. I have to pivot because I'm not doing something right. Pivoting isn't always you having a mistake or you are not being successful, but a pivot is just a change in direction. So if I was going this way, pivot is just me shifting to go this way. And so a lot of times people think that, it's failure, but it's not. Pivoting is just another sign of wisdom, showing that you know when to identify or how to identify what's coming up ahead and knowing how to move out the way so you can go into a new direction so you can still be successful, grow even further than where you were. And so in First Kings 17, when the brook dried up, God didn't tell Elijah to stay and wait on the brook. He told him to go to Zarephath. He told him to go somewhere else so that way he wouldn't suffer in the place where he was. Because think about it. If the brook right here was drying up and you see the problem and God told you to move, obviously there's a reason why he wanted you to move is because the brook drying up wasn't the punishment. It was just a redirection. It was just a way of saying, hey, I need you to just go this way. There's plenty over here. And so how many of us are, or how many of us are actually still sitting at a dried up brook, waiting on water to come out when you see that it's a problem? I want you to just listen to God and redirect yourself to something different. Pivot, right? Because God only allows these things so that way you can pivot. He shows you the problem. He puts the problem in front of you so that way you can pivot. And so you might think that pivoting means giving up. Pivoting is not giving up. But what if not pivoting is the reason why you're not seeing the success in your business or in your life? Your failure to pivot is the reason why you're struggling now. And so, what if the very thing that you're holding on to is the reason why you're not seeing the breakthrough that you've been praying for? Because a lot of times we sit here and we just say, man, I don't know what happened. But you had a prompting. You heard a voice from God saying, hey, probably shouldn't do this. Probably should just go and invest it. Or you should start adding this service. Or you should even stop this business and pivot here. Right. So why don't people like to pivot? Why don't people like to pivot? And it's a few things actually. One is a fear of failure. The fear of failure keeps people from pivoting because a lot of people feel like, man, what if I pivot and it don't work? What if I pivot and it don't work? Most entrepreneurs are paralyzed by the thought that they're going to make the wrong move. And so the worst thing that you can do in a place where you need to pivot is do nothing. Doing nothing is worse than pivoting to the wrong thing. Because the Bible says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. That's in 2 Timothy 1:7. Fear is the thing that's going to keep you stuck. It's going to keep you from moving and pivoting into the right direction. But faith is the thing that's going to push you forward. Emotional attachment. Like people are so attached to the original version of thing that they've created. They're so in love with the business that they've created, the idea of what they already had. And that same emotional attachment is the same thing that's going to keep them from actually moving into the place where God is saying, "Hey, I'm going to give you something better." Because think about it. God took the people from the Israelites from Egypt and said, "I'm going to take you to the promised land. I'm going to take you to the land filled with milk and honey." Right? But what's your Egypt? What's the thing that you're holding on to? The emotional connection to the thing that you've been so comfortable with, right? You gotta let go of the old thing in order to see something new. I heard Steve Harvey talk about a story where he kept telling his mom that he was finna get a new car. He was finna get a new car, but his mom kept telling him, "Your old car still sitting in the driveway. Your old car still sitting in the driveway. Why do you keep reminding me about this old car that's still sitting in the driveway?" It's because that old car, the thing that you're holding on to, is holding up space for the place where your new thing can actually enter. And so the next one is the sunk cost fallacy. You've put all this investment, all this time, this money, this effort, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. You built this business from the ground up. And now, because you have so much tied to this, you don't want to let it go. You don't want to let it go. But here's the thing, every day that you actually stay stuck, you actually lose momentum. Every day that you don't move, you're losing momentum. You're slowing down. And ultimately, you're going to stop. And so sometimes the best investment that you can actually make for yourself and your business is to start fresh, start something new. The next one is lack of clarity. A lot of people don't understand where to go, thus keeping them stuck and not moving or pivoting into the right direction. Not knowing where to go is probably one of the key factors on why people don't start and why people don't pivot. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." So a pivot without clarity is just chaos. So you don't move because you're not clear about the thing. But when you actually have a vision or a plan of how you should pivot and why you should pivot, that's progress. That's you going to the place where you know you actually want to go. It's just like saying, "Man, I'm finna get in my car. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm finna go somewhere. I'm finna drive 3 hours." But if you didn't plan for 3 hours in your gas tank, that's why you're gonna be on the side of the road asking for people, "Hey, I need to ride to the gas station." And the last thing is your pride and your ego. It's hard to admit that you're doing wrong or your wrongdoing is the thing that's keeping your business from actually moving. Your pride won't let you accept it. Your ego is going to get hurt. Proverbs 16:18 says pride goes before destruction. Like you can be right, but are you effective? Right? Sometimes the most powerful thing that you can do is admit when you actually need a new approach to your business. Having a new approach from somebody, even somebody else, saying, "Hey, I believe that we need to pivot into this direction because I see the market shifting over here." But when you say that I know it all, I know what I'm talking about. I ain't finna pivot. Guess what? Pride before destruction. And so your pride is ultimately the one thing that's going to keep you from being successful in business. So, when is the best time to actually pivot? Here's the 5 key signs on when you should actually pivot, right? And the thing is, this is the first one for me is a key factor because I've been in multiple seasons where I knew that I needed to pivot, but I stayed anyway. And I had to deal with the consequences of not pivoting or not moving. When your growth actually stalls, meaning that there's no growth, you've learned everything that you could in this one area. Like you feel like you're going and going, but you feel like you're not going nowhere. Right? You ever seen the dude on TikTok that be running in place? He look like he going so far and so fast, but the whole time you just stuck in the same place. You doing all this moving, but not moving anywhere. God told the Israelites that you've been circling this same route for 40 years. I'm tired of looking at you circle this same spot. I want you to turn north. Your growth is indicator of when it's time to pivot. When there's no more room for growth, time to pivot. Number 2 is when new opportunities arise. So a door opening for you, it's not always a coincidence. It's not just a coincidence. It's really just a divine direction. So like in the New Testament, Paul was actually supposed to be going to Asia to preach the word. But on his way to Asia, guys, the Holy Spirit said, I need you to pivot. I need you to go to Macedonia. Right? God is showing you a new opportunity. It's not just a detour, it's your new destination. It's your pivot. When your new opportunity shows up in your face, are you willing to pivot? Or are you going to be stuck on the place where you originally thought you? It's almost like when I thought I was finna move to all these different places. I thought I was finna move and live a new life in a new city, but the whole time I told me to pivot, and I was willing to pivot. And so, number 3, you should pivot when your audience shifts. When the audience that you originally started off with, they start to change. They start not receiving the the value that you're actually giving. That's a sign that you need to pivot. It's a sign that things are starting to change. Maybe you grew into a different person to where now you can't relate to the old crowd. It's just like if you started talking to new entrepreneurs, but as you start gaining success, your language changed, your audience changed. And now the people that you're called to serve are no longer new entrepreneurs, but people who are established. So when your audience change, it's time to pivot. You don't want to miss out on new opportunities because you're still stuck in the old ways. You're still stuck on the old audience. You need to make room for the new people as well. Like when Jesus told his disciples to shake off the dust off their feet and move on, that was a pivot. Don't waste your time or your words on ears that won't hear. So, number 4, when there's a lack of impact, when there's a lack of impact. So, are you busy but not productive? Lack of impact. Jesus said that every tree that does not bear fruit is cut down. So that means that a pivot is not about losing what you've already built, but it's about pruning the things that's not bearing fruit for something greater. It's like I went to an apple orchard where I learned few things. If there's too many apples on the same branch, the apples that's on that branch may not all get the same level of sweetness. And so when you prune the things that the things that's not working for you, now you have better fruit. You have things that you can actually serve to other people. Number 5, when the enjoyment is gone. When you don't feel like you actually enjoy the thing that you're doing, that is a sign that it's time to pivot. Something got to change. Whether you on your job, whether you on your business, if the enjoyment is gone, it might be time to pivot. The joy of the Lord is your strength. So if the joy is gone, it might be because God is saying, hey, I'm leading you to a new area. I'm leading you to a new venture, a new business, new idea, right? That's a sign for you to actually think about a different direction. Sometimes the lack of joy is just a sign that it's time to pivot and pivot into your promise. I'm so God. So now let's talk about what are the downs, what's the downside of not pivoting? What is the downside of not pivoting? So stagnation, burnout, missed opportunities, financial impact. So with stagnation, you're feeling stuck. You're feeling like you can't move forward. You're stuck in the same place doing the same thing every single day. Like the danger of not pivoting is you being stuck. Who likes being stuck in the same place, not being able to move? I don't. I know you shouldn't. Burnout. Burnout isn't just a sign that, well, it's not a sign that you're not capable. It's just more so of a sign that you're not aligned with the thing that you need to be doing. And so when you're not aligned with the thing that you need to be doing, you're going to get tired of it. And ultimately, you're going to stop it. You're going to quit. But when you can actually pivot, you avoid that burnout because now you're refreshed. But that burnout ain't no joke. It's just like people post on social media. They post every day, but they're posting so much to the point where they're not aligned with the mission and the strategies that they put in place. And now they're so tired that they don't post at all. Missed opportunities. You're what you was holding on to, just like how I said Steve Harvey was holding on to that old car. Now you missed the opportunity to put something new in its place. It says that in Genesis 19 and 26, when Lot's wife looked back, when she looked at what was behind her, after God told her, don't look back, look what's in front of you. She turned into a pillar of salt. You missed the opportunity to go into something new because you're still looking in your rearview mirror. Who drives a car looking in the rearview mirror the entire time? You're never going to get to your destination like that. And the financial impact of it. You might think that pivoting is risky, but again, not pivoting, it's going to cost you more in the future than it is right now. Because if you don't pivot, guess what? You're going to miss out on opportunities. And if you miss on opportunities and fail to pivot, you're going to miss the new audience that you can actually reach, which ultimately means you won't have any revenue coming in. You won't you won't have any money coming in. And guess what? Ultimately, you going to have to shut that business down. That's why you're struggling. Like that, I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be broke. So to avoid the financial hardship, pivoting is necessary. So lastly, we're going to talk about how you can actually, I'm going to give you practical steps on how you can actually pivot. So that way, you, when it comes time, once you identify, hey, I feel like I need to pivot right now. So how do I actually pivot? Why should I pivot? The first thing that you should always do is pray for wisdom. Always pray for wisdom. Like God will give you direction when you ask him. He supplies wisdom abundantly. All you gotta do is just ask for it. Because every move that you make, it needs to be aligned with what God had already told you or what He's showing you. Or just wait for the answer. Number two, look at your current situation and analyze it. See what's working and see what's not working. Maybe you just need to tweak certain things. Maybe you just need to move in a whole different direction. Analyze what's working and what's not working. Because if you don't know where you are, you can't say where you're actually going. Number three, identify opportunity. Ask God to open your eyes to the things that or the opportunities that you need to see. Because sometimes God actually puts new opportunities to do different things, meet new people. Sometimes He puts it right in our face. He puts it right in our face. But if we don't have the eyes to actually see this as an opportunity, we're going to miss it. Number four, test it before you actually go 100% with it. So when you do the first three of praying for praying for the wisdom, analyzing the situation, and identifying the opportunities, that don't mean go 100% into it. Test it and see. See if this pivot or this direction of where you're going is actually something that's gonna work. You got to test it. So it's not an all or nothing move. It's okay. Let me try it and see if this actually works. Let me add this service and see if the audience right. Let me see if the value that I give in this area is actually something that's in. And then number five, you got to communicate the change. You got to communicate the change. Like, because if you've already built an audience, they know you for a certain thing. So when you pivot, you don't want to leave them or put them in a position to where it's just like, man, you really just switched up on me. This ain't what I knew you for. But when you communicate and say, hey, I feel like right now the best way that I can actually serve you is by moving into this direction. You got to be transparent with your audience. You got to be transparent. Like share why you're actually moving in this direction. Because when you're transparent and authentic about what you're doing, guess what? Your audience is gonna rock with you regardless. So if at any point you feel like, dang, you didn't said all this information, and I really feel like I needed to pivot. Maybe it's time. What are you waiting on? There's Don't wait until you feel like, oh, I need to have the perfect opportunity to pivot. Oh, I don't know enough to pivot. Right for wisdom. Pivot anyway. Because your pivot may be the one thing that saves your business from destruction and ruin and leave you in a place where now you have to go back to a in order to live the life that you want to live, you got to do things that may not seem comfortable at that current time. Open your eyes and see if it's your time. So till the next time, I'll see y'all in the next one.